And the problem is they get locked into that format and no one trusts them. And then they leave and they go, yeah, but you were just lying to us about this, that, and the other thing. And now I'm supposed to believe you're one of the good guys. You're one of the straight shooters now.
Yeah.
As Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is desperate to restore his image, he returned to the Joe Rogan podcast, where he started off sounding reasonable.
You only start one of these companies if you believe in giving people a voice, right? I mean, the whole point of social media is basically, giving people the ability to share what they want.
But it's hard to tell, as this appears to be the same thing he said in another seemingly scripted speech.
I started building social media to give people a voice.
I don't 100% trust much of what he says, especially as many genius-tier programmers aren't the most natural communicators. So I imagine Meta's PR team gave him very specific talking points to protect the company's image. But I do appreciate how he immediately went into Decoy Voice was right the entire time.
It was during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative, but they pushed us super hard to take down things that were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. Inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and scream at them and curse, and it's these documents it's all kind of out there.
Did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we they wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, and they're like, no, you have to take that down.
Now, I wasn't on Meta much before, but I do recall the same issues on this platform, as many of you started watching me during the lockdowns and how I was almost more of a sports guy, talking about the hypocrisy of what was happening to Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets, constantly fighting soft censorship. And I was simply pointing out the stupidity of how since Kyrie didn't take the vaccine, he was only allowed to travel with the team and play in every other city except his home games in Brooklyn. But Brooklyn somehow still allowed him to buy tickets and sit courtside, all because he didn't take a shot that we now know didn't stop transmission.
First of all, you don't get the vaccine for yourself, you get it for other people. I really am proud of the Nets for putting their foot down, for saying, no, we're not going to deal with this half on, half off.
And I wasn't even trying to tell anybody do or do not take a certain medicine. I was just pointing out how nonsensical their arguments were. But if you dared point that out on Facebook, you'd be shadow banned just because it's inconvenient for Biden. All since his so-called fact checkers stated otherwise.
We're like, all right, we're just gonna have this system where there's these third-party fact checkers and they can check the worst of the worst stuff, right? So we put in place the system and it just sort of veered from there. I think to some degree, it's because some of the people whose job is to do fact-checking, a lot of their industry is focused on political fact-checking, so they just kind of veered in that direction. I kind of think, after having gone through that whole exercise, it, I don't know, it's something out of, 1984, one of these books where it's just it really is a slippery slope. And It just got to a point where it's just, okay, this is destroying so much trust, especially in the United States, to have this program. And I guess it was probably about a few years that I really started coming to the conclusion that we were going to need to change something about that.
And of course, this upsets Biden.
Of walking away from fact-checking, I find to be just contrary to American justice, the way we talk about one another. Telling the truth matters.
It's scary how close we got to 4 more years of leadership that fears the effects of when regular people can question them, as they never cry for fact-checking flat earthers or Berenstein Bear believers. It only seems to be when you and me start to get close to things that they're desperate for us not to notice. As right now, Los Angeles is getting hit with record wildfires, so California Governor Gavin Newsom is begging Biden to block the bad press.
I ask you, we've got to deal with this misinformation. There were hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation lies. And it breaks my heart as people are suffering and struggling, that we're up against those hurricane forces as well.
So real quick, as I'm editing this video and I'm re-watching Governor Gavin Newsom compare the hurricane force winds and wildfires that are destroying people's lives right now to the so-called hurricane force lies about his administration, I just want to take this moment to say, fuck you. No, Newsom, it's not mis or disinformation when Fox News calls you out for cutting the fire department's budget. And even though Newsom replied, "This was a lie. We doubled the size of our firefighting army. I'm serving the facts," he's straight ignoring how Fox News explicitly acknowledged the increases. They were writing about the recent cuts, to which even their own fire department's chief complained about.
Yes, we took a $17 million budget cut. And as we know, any budget cut would negatively impact our ability to carry out our mission.
And that wasn't the only time.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
As recently as 5 days ago, they wrote about a nearly $50 million budget reduction that could close 16 fire stations. The chief even complained about the $7 million of cuts just over a month ago, and 6 months before that, she documented the $17 million cut from the year before. Governor Gavin Newsom has the gall to go to Biden telling him to cut Americans' constitutional rights because we dare share the thoroughly documented instances of them cutting the fire department's budget.
The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation.
So what he calls disinformation is just information that disses the Democrats. And again, I don't go as far to blame them over natural disasters, but I won't ignore their contributions to the carnage. And even though they claim to not want to make this tragedy political, his party leaders rushed to the internet to fundraise off of the disaster, as the Twitter community notes correctly call them out for linking a Democrat platform that takes 3.95% of all transactions, but also pointing out how their link also gives money to United Way. You know, the same United Way that has a long history of CEOs stealing money. The same United Way that took in $21 million of contributions, but somehow paid out $22 million to themselves, as several of their scumbag leaders collect over $200,000 salaries, with their CEO close to $1 million. And I don't want to get too distracted by United Way. I just have personal bad experiences with that specific so-called charity during my college years, and the fact that the Democrats are using a mass tragedy that they contributed to as a way to pay some of those salaries enrages me. But back to the main point of Meta and Mark Zuckerberg potentially turning the corner. The New York Times reports they immediately took the tampons out of their men's bathrooms. They reportedly removed certain themes from their Messenger app, and Zuckerberg actually flew out to talk to Trump in Mar-a-Lago.
Jeff Bezos came, Bill Gates came, Mark Zuckerberg came. Many of them came numerous times. The bankers have all come. Everybody's coming.
Now, I don't know exactly what happened there, but I am glad they're doing it, as that's just a long list of people that actively worked against Donald Trump during the election. And if they're all now flying in to kiss the ring, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. As when Joe Rogan posted about Zuckerberg's visit on Meta-owned Instagram, people called out how Mark would be doing the opposite if Kamala won. Now this is just a PR move and they don't trust him. And getting a perm and putting on a chain doesn't make you any more likable. Now, this is just a coincidence. This is a cheap chain from Amazon, and even though I appear Asian, my hair is naturally this curly. I just use this thing called not knowing who your biological father is. So no, I don't necessarily like Mark Zuckerberg, but I do appreciate him finally speaking the truth. I don't like what he's done, but I do want him to be better, as there's plenty of people on Facebook and Instagram that have been shielded from reality. So finally going on Instagram is our first opportunity to actually speak to them. And as Joe Rogan showed, those Meta sunglasses are actually kinda cool. I was gifted a pair for Christmas and actually used them a lot during my travels. This isn't an endorsement or anything, but it always annoys me when liberals despise Elon Musk so much that they literally hope SpaceX and Starlink fail just because they don't agree politically with the CEO. Meta sunglasses seem cool, so I hope the company can continue to pull back on censorship. As apparently right now on Facebook and Instagram, they're allowing people to say things I'm definitely censoring here, which compared to places like TikTok, where Jeffrey explains the difference between them and Twitter, where he just posted a video about that Los Angeles fire chief that previously said this.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or, you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
And his video was removed from TikTok for bullying. Now it's easy to say, okay, TikTok doesn't want our voices, so let's stick to Twitter. But I don't want that to be the case, as there's still a huge amount of people that only go on TikTok or Instagram, that have never even wanted a Twitter. And when we isolate the two sides on separate sites, that's when we end up with a society that lives in two separate realities. So if you're on X, you know how the politicians are using our tragedy to skim off donations, but if you're on TikTok, you might not even know the fire hydrants ran out of water. So when Zuckerberg goes on Joe Rogan to admit his mistakes, I don't shake my fist and call for his exile, as you don't have to trust what he's saying. But him saying this is the first step to us winning the culture war. So if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription, then go check out the video on how they tried to lie about the fires in LA, but were quickly exposed.